There is a sound a great hall makes when 300 people realize at the same moment that they are about to watch something they cannot unwatch. I was on the second step, with my hand on the rail, and the words already out of me, the old words. The ones you cannot take back once the second half is spoken, and the room had gone white at the edges the way a room does when your body has begun leaving before you have. Someone dropped a cup. Nobody picked it up. The man at the top of the steps had not moved. He had gone the grey of wet stone, and he was looking at me the way you look at a fire you set yourself, and every soul in that hall was waiting for him to answer me. Because a severance is not a severance until it is answered. All he had to do was say the words back. He opened his mouth. I held on to the rail with everything I had left in both hands. And he said no. It started 9 weeks before that, on the night of the claiming ball, in a laundry, with my dress on somebody else. My name is Marin of Aldrin, and on the night in question I was 24 years old, and worth precisely one thing, and the thing was not me. House Aldrin holds the Windgate. Held is closer. 11 miles of pass through the North Mountains, the only road wide enough for carts between the Iron Territories and everything above them, and my family had kept it for 200 years, and had, by that autumn, exactly one member left with a claim on it, and she was standing in a laundry in a stolen apron. My father died the first winter, my brother the second. My uncle Baldric came down from the coast to hold the seat until I married, which was very kind of him, and I have never in my life been so grateful for anything as I was, at 19, to have a grown man take that weight off me. I found out at 22 that he had been selling the pass a mile at a time to the Draymore packs, in pieces, under lease. I found out at 24 that I was going to a claiming ball. That is what they call it. Every house of the North sends its eligible daughters to the hold at midwinter, and they stand along a dais in order of rank while the Alpha King walks the line, and at the end of it he speaks a name. Or he does not. 300 years of it. My mother went to one. She was not chosen, and she told me once, in a bad winter, that it was the happiest night of her life. And I understood exactly what would happen if a king with a border problem walked that line and saw the last daughter of the house that owns the only road north. He would not be choosing a woman. He would be choosing an 11-mile pass with a face on it, and my uncle would have his lease confirmed by the crown, and I would spend the rest of my life as a signature. I will not be a deed of land. I said that out loud to a laundry maid on the night of the ball, and I have had cause to say it twice more since. Her name was Nessa. She was 17, and she thought the whole thing was the funniest situation she had ever been party to. They will know, she said, buttoning me into grey wool. They will not. Nobody looks at you. That is true, said Nessa, with feeling, and put on 11 pounds of blue Aldrin silk, and went to go stand in a line and be looked at by a king, and I want it on the record that she volunteered. That she was paid for it. That she thought it was a lark, and that everything bad that came of it came from a direction neither of us was watching. So at the 8th hour of midwinter, I was standing against the wall of the great hall of Blackfen Hold, with a tray of empty cups, in grey, invisible, exactly where I had planned to be, watching a line of the most beautiful women in the North arrange themselves along a dais in order of rank. He came in late. That was the first strange thing, and I noticed it, and did not know what to do with it. A king does not arrive late to his own ceremony. The herald had already read the list twice. The line had been standing for the better part of an hour, and one of the Haramir girls had begun to cry very quietly out of sheer nerves. He came in through the side door with his second at his shoulder and mud on his boots, and the hall stood up. And I got my first look at Rurik of the Iron Territories. He was perhaps 34 and built like a door. Dark, unornamented, no crown, one old white scar through the back of his hand. He crossed to the dais and stood in front of the whole assembled North, and he did not look at the line. Not once. He looked at the herald, and then at the roll in the herald's hands, and then at the far end of the hall in a way I later learnt meant he was doing arithmetic on somebody. "Who read the summons?" he said. The herald stammered something. I asked who read the summons out, not who wrote it. And a voice from the floor of the hall said, warmly, "The Regent of Aldrin, my lord, in your absence, as the eldest house present," and that was my uncle Baldric, in his good coat, being helpful. Rurik looked at him for 4 full seconds. Then he turned around and walked the line. I have thought a great deal about what he was doing. At the time I thought he was choosing. He walked the whole length of that dice at the pace of a man inspecting a fence, and he did not stop, and he did not speak. And 22 women of the great houses of the north watched the most powerful wolf alive go past them without a flicker. He got to Nessa in 11 pounds of Aldrin blue at the top of the line. He stopped. Every person in that hall leaned forward. My uncle Baldric put his hand on the back of a chair. And the king of the Iron Territories looked at that girl for a moment, and something went over his face that I could not read from 40 feet, and he said, clearly enough for the room, "You are not her." Nessa, to her eternal credit, said nothing at all. He turned around. He came off that dice, and he walked into the body of the hall, past the Haramir daughters, past the Eastern Holdings, past 100 people who moved out of his way without deciding to. And he came the whole length of that room in a straight line to the wall where the servers stood, and stopped in front of a woman in grey wool, holding a tray of empty cups. "Dance with me. I would like to report that I said something clever." "I am carrying cups, my lord." Bronn, the enormous fair-haired man at his shoulder, came and took the tray out of my hands with the expression of a man receiving a corpse. 300 people were watching. 300. The musicians had stopped. Somewhere on the dice, one of the Haramir girls made a noise like a kettle, and I understood, standing there, that I had 2 choices, and one of them was to say no, out loud in front of the North, to a man who could have had me hanged for the apron I was wearing and that he had asked, and that a question is a question. I could have said no. I want that written down. Because of everything that came after, he asked, in front of witnesses, and I stood there for a full breath deciding, and then I put my hand out. Nobody made me do anything that night. He was not a good dancer. He was a competent one, which is worse, because it meant he had been taught and had never once enjoyed it. He held me at the distance of a man handling something borrowed. "You are not a servant," he said, when we had gone half the floor. "I am tonight. Your hands are wrong. And you came in on the second beat, which nobody learns in a laundry. A turn. And my wolf has been trying to walk me across this room since I came through the door, and he does not do that for laundry maids, and I would very much like to know what he thinks he is doing, because I certainly do not." That was the moment the fear arrived properly. Not of him. I want to be precise about this because it matters. I was not afraid of the king. I was afraid because I could not tell what he knew. If he knew I was Marin of Aldrin, then this was a man cornering an 11-mile pass in a laundry apron in front of the whole North, and it was the cleverest thing anyone had ever done to me. If he did not know if he had genuinely crossed that hall for a woman in grey, then something had happened to me tonight that I had no arrangements for. "What is your name?" he said. "Nessa." The music went on for 4 bars. "No," he said. "It is not." "My lord, you may keep it," he said. "You may keep all of it, but I am not going to say that name to you, because it is not yours, and I have had a great deal of lying done at me tonight already." The dance ended. He let go of my hand a half beat after he should have, which I noticed and filed and did not say anything about for 9 weeks. Then he stepped back and said, to the hall at large, in a voice built for a battlefield, "There will be no claiming. Not tonight, Not this winter. I did not summon this ball, and I have not consented to one in 3 years. And every daughter standing on that dais has been brought here in cold weather on somebody's forgery. Go home. My house will pay your roads. And he walked out. If you want to know what happens to a woman who has just been danced with by a king in front of the entire North while wearing someone else's apron, and whether he ever found out whose face he had actually been looking for, stay with me and follow along so you do not lose the thread. It gets a great deal more frightening from here, before it gets kind. Here is what a forgery means, in case it went past you the way it went past me for a fortnight. Somebody had summoned 22 eligible daughters of the North to Blackfen Hold in the king's name without the king. Somebody had wanted every great house watching when a king walked a line, and had wanted, specifically, one house at the head of that line in Aldrin blue. And when the king of the Iron Territories asked who had read the summons out, my uncle Baldric had answered warmly and by name, in front of everyone, because he was proud of it. I did not go home to the coast with him. I stayed at Blackfen, in the laundry, as Nessa's second, at 4 silver a quarter. That was mine. Nobody made me. Baldric raged for 2 days, and then went. And I understood later that he went because a niece inside the hold was more useful to him than a niece on the coast, and that I had walked into the exact place he wanted me. The wolf found me on the 4th day. I was hanging linen in the drying yard, and something came around the corner of the wall and stopped, and it was black and enormous, and it looked at me the way a creditor looks at a door. Then it lay down in the middle of a yard full of wet sheets and did not leave for the rest of the afternoon. The next day it herded me. I have no other word. I came out with a basket, and it put itself against my left side and walked me the entire length of the lower court, past the forge, past the kennels, and delivered me to the foot of the North Tower stair, where it sat down and looked at the stair, and then at me, and then at the stair. No, I said. It looked at the stair. Absolutely not. Above us, a window opened, and the king of the Iron Territories put his head out and said, in the voice of a man who has already lost this argument several times, "Ignore him. He is very persuasive, my lord. He is a menace, and he will be dealt with." A pause. "Do not go up the stair." I was not going to. "Good," he said, and then stood there in the window for another 5 seconds, and then shut it with unnecessary force. That was the pattern for a fortnight, and it was, I am sorry to say, extremely funny. His wolf would do something outrageous, lie across the door of the counting room while I was inside it, walk me to the king's own table at a public supper, and sit down beside my stool, and Rurik would arrive at speed, 4 seconds too late, having clearly been elsewhere fighting himself, and stand there with his jaw working, while 100 people watched their king be publicly overruled by his own second nature. He never once apologized for it. He also never once made it stop. The Great Hall happened on the 19th day. Winter Court. Every man of rank in Blackfen, the Eastern Holdings, 3 envoys from Draymore, the king on the wolf throne, and the whole business of the North on the floor. I was at the back with the household, holding a jug. Because that is where you stand. The wolf came off the dice. 300 people watched an animal the size of a plough horse come down off a throne, cross the entire length of the Great Hall of the Iron Territories, and lie down at the boots of a laundry maid. Not near them. On them. The hall made a sound I have never heard before or since. The Draymore envoys were on their feet. Somebody said the word Luna out loud, and somebody else told them to be quiet in a voice that carried. And I stood there with a jug and 11 stone of wolf on my feet, and looked up the length of that room at a man on a throne who had gone entirely still, and who did not order it back, and who did not explain it, and who I watched him do it, closed his eyes for exactly 4 seconds, and opened them, and said, "Continue," and let the whole North see him lose. He came to the laundry that night, which no king has ever done. I am going to say a thing badly, he said from the doorway. I have been composing it since the ball, and it has not improved. Then say it badly. I do not want this. That is a wonderful start. I have a border war with the Draymore Pax that has been 8 months from breaking for 2 years. I have a pass in the north I cannot legally garrison. I have a council that would like me married to the Eastern Holdings by spring. He put one hand on the frame of the door. And I have a wolf who has decided, and who will not be reasoned with, and who is right. And I have spent 19 days constructing arguments against a woman I have spoken to twice, and losing all of them, and I am tired. You have not once asked me my name. No. Why? Because you will tell me when you have decided to, he said, and I have had enough of this year's worth of people arranging me. 3 sentences and a whole man in them. I was 4 paces away. It was 2 paces further than either of us needed, and exactly as far as either of us could manage. And I felt that laundry as a room I could not walk across. I will not be a deed of land, I said. He did not ask what I meant. That is the thing. He looked at me for a long moment and did not ask. And I understood that he had known, or nearly known, for some while, and had been waiting for me to hand it to him rather than take it. No, he agreed. You will not. I found the Windgate rolls 11 days later, in the counting room, looking for something else entirely. 2 winters of muster. 50 men at a time, rotated, paid out of the king's own purse and not the treasury, listed under no banner, garrisoned at the 11-mile pass of the Windgate, the pass my uncle had leased away in pieces, the pass no king may legally garrison without the holding house's consent, the pass I had been told for 3 years was quietly rotting. And a line at the bottom of the second winter's roll, in a hand I had by then seen on 4 orders, Aldrin cannot hold it, and will not ask. Hold it anyway. Do not put my name on this. He had been keeping my family's road alive for 2 years, with his own money and no banner, while my uncle sold it under lease, while I sat on the coast believing I was the last thing standing between the Windgate and the Draymore Pax. I sat down on the floor of the counting room. And then I did the arithmetic properly, for the first time, and it came out somewhere I did not like. Because if he had held that pass for 2 winters at his own cost, then he had never needed to marry it. He had never needed me. There was no version of the ball where the King of the Iron Territories walked a line looking for 11 miles of road with a face on it. And there never had been, and I had spent 9 weeks protecting myself from a danger that did not exist, while the man who had built the ball, forged the summons, and put my house at the head of that line, was still on the coast with my seal in his box. Something in me that had been afraid stopped being afraid. I went upstairs and I did not knock. His name is Baldric of Aldrin, I said. He is my uncle. He is my regent. I am Marin of Aldrin, and I am the last of that house, and I would like to know what you intend to do about the man who forged your summons, because I have decided to stop waiting to find out. Rurik stood up very slowly. Marin, he said. 9 weeks. He had not used a name at me in 9 weeks. I had not known what it would do. Say it again. Later, he said. Come and look at this. My uncle's answer came 4 days after that, and it was good. He came up from the coast with the betrothal contract. It was beautiful work. My seal, my hand, or near enough that 3 men swore to it, dated the spring before the ball, binding Marin of Aldrin to the son of the Draymore Alpha, with the Windgate as the portion, sealed, witnessed, filed with the coastal court, a full season before the king had ever set eyes on me. Which meant, in front of the entire winter court and 3 Draymore envoys, that the king of the Iron Territories had danced with, favoured, and been publicly claimed by a woman already contracted to the Pax he was 8 months from war with. It nearly worked. I want to be honest about how nearly. Two of the Eastern holdings called for me to be turned out of the hold that same hour. The Draymore envoys demanded I be surrendered to the contract. Bronn told me afterward that it was the closest he had come in 11 years to seeing his king put in a position with no move in it, because Rurik could either hand me over and be seen to have been played, or refuse and hand Draymore a cause for the war that had been waiting 2 years to start. And Baldric stood in the middle of the floor being sorrowful about it. Then he made his second move, which was the one I have never forgiven, because the first one was only politics. He produced Nessa. He had had her 4 days. She was 17 and grey-faced, and she had been made to understand what happens to a laundry maid who impersonates a noblewoman at a royal ceremony, which is the road and the brand. And he had explained to her warmly, helpfully, that all of this could be avoided if she would simply tell the court the truth, which was that Marin of Aldrin had put her in that blue dress deliberately, to be seen refusing the ball, in order to be pursued. She stood up in front of the North and said it. She was crying. She looked at me the entire time, and I nodded at her, twice, because there was nothing else I could give her. The word they used was seduction. The charge underneath it was worse, that the king had been worked, in his own hall, by a border house, for a pass. Rurik started to stand up. And this is the part everyone tells wrong, so I will tell it myself. He was going to save me. I could see the whole shape of it forming the public claim, the name spoken, the hand out in front of the court, the thing every person in that hall was braced for. And it would have finished him, a king who answers the charge of being seduced for a pass, by immediately claiming the woman has not answered it. He would have been the man who was worked, for the rest of his life, in every hall in the North, and the war would have come in the spring, with that story riding in front of it. So I got there first. I went up onto the second step of the dais, which no unlanded person may do, and I said, loudly enough for the back of the hall, "The Windgate is not mine to give, and I do not want it. I renounce the claim of Aldrin, in full, before this court. The pass goes to the crown tonight, freely, with no portion, no contract, and no marriage attached to it, and I will sign that in front of every one of you before I sign anything else." The hall came apart. Baldric was shouting something about the coastal court. It did not matter. A house's claim dies with its last holder's word, and I was the last holder, and I had just made myself, in front of 300 witnesses, a woman with no land, no name worth anything, and no value to any man in that room. Which took the whole charge apart at the hinge. You cannot be seduced for a pass by a woman who has just given the pass away for nothing. But it left the other half. And the other half was that a king had crossed a hall for me in front of the North, and his wolf had chosen me on the floor of this one, and every soul present had seen it, and no renunciation on earth was going to unmake that. So I did the other thing. There is a right in the old law that belongs to the one the bond falls on, and it exists because the North has never entirely trusted its kings. If a wolf's bond settles where the pack cannot bear it, the one chosen may speak the severance and end it. It costs. Everyone knows it costs. It is the only thing in that hall I have ever been afraid of. I put my hand on the rail, and I spoke the first half of it. There is a sound a great hall makes when 300 people realize at once that they are about to watch something they cannot unwatch. It came for me before I had finished. I had been told it was pain, and it was not pain. It was subtraction, the whole warm weight of a thing I had not admitted I was carrying being taken out of me by the roots, and the room going white at the edges, and my own hands on the rail, somewhere far below me. There was blood coming out of my nose. I remember being distantly annoyed about the step. A severance is not a severance until it is answered. That is the law. All he had to do was say the words back. He came down off that dice. "No," said Rurik of the Iron Territories. Then he went down on one knee on the steps of his own hall in front of the whole of the north, and he took my hands off the rail and put them in his, and he said, "You have just given me an 11-mile pass that I have held for 2 winters with my own men and my own coin under no banner, because your house could not hold it and would not ask. It was never worth anything to me. I did not want it, and I do not need it, and I have never once required it of you." His hands closed. "You gave away everything you had for a thing I did not need, in front of everyone, to keep a charge off me. Do you understand what that leaves standing in this hall?" I could not see him properly. I got out. "What? Only you," he said. Marin, I do not remember the rest of that evening. Bronn tells me the Draymore envoys were gone before the doors shut. Baldric of Aldrin was taken in the yard. I want the aftermath honestly, so here it is. The severance did not complete, but it does not simply close over either. I lost 8 days. I could not get warm until the thaw. There is a hollow place under my breastbone that aches in bad weather, and the healers say it will do that for the rest of my life, and I have decided to consider it a receipt. Baldric was not executed. Rurik did something colder. The coastal court, which had sat on his forgeries for 3 years because he fed it, was made to try him itself, and when it did the arithmetic on what that meant for the men on it, 4 of them went down with him. He is in the Windgate now, on the road crew, widening the pass he sold in pieces. He will be there a long time. Nessa was not punished. I would not permit it, and Rurik did not want to. And when he asked me what I wanted done with her, I said, "Give her wages and a witness's protection and let her sleep. She is 17. And he looked at me for a moment and said, "That is what I was going to say." And I said, "I know, I could see you constructing it." And he said, "Stop doing that. She is the head of that laundry now. She is 20, and she runs it like a border war." It was not clean politically either. 2 of the Eastern holdings had called for me to be turned out, and had to sit at the spring muster with the woman they had called for, and one of them has never once looked me in the face. The Draymore War did not come, but only because a king who had been publicly seen to give away nothing for love was a king they could not read. And unreadable is worth more than strong. A year on, this is what my life is. The Windgate is crown ground, and there are 200 men in it, and the carts run in winter for the first time in 9 years. There is a stone at the 11-mile mark with my father's name and my brother's on it, which was not my idea. There is a wolf who still herds me, entirely without shame, and who has taken to lying across the door of the counting room, specifically when I have work in it. And a king who no longer bothers arriving 4 seconds late to pretend he disapproves. The kiss, since you have been patient, happened in a drying yard in the spring, between 2 lines of wet sheets, where nobody could see us, which he insisted on, and which I found unbearably funny, given that the entire North had watched him kneel. It was brief, and it was not what I expected, which is that nothing in me caught fire. Something in me set down. 9 weeks of a false name and 3 years of being an 11-mile road, put down at once, and the quiet after it was the loudest thing I have ever heard. He uses my name now. Constantly, ceaselessly. He says it at councils, in corridors, across courtyards, to get my attention when I am 4 feet away and looking directly at him. And last month I asked him whether he intended to keep doing it for the rest of our lives. 9 weeks, said the King of the Iron Territories. I had nothing to call you. You may have it back when I am finished. He is not finished. I do not expect him to be. So tell me, do you think he truly did not know who I was when he crossed that hall? Or had he worked it out somewhere around the second beat and simply decided not to say so? Bronn and I have had this argument for a year, and I would like it settled by people with no stake in it. Tell me your theory below. And if you want to know what came up the North Road the following autumn with my mother's name on it, because that is a whole other story, and it nearly took the roof off this house comment the second step. And stay with me. Rurik and I are not finished. Follow along, and I will tell you that one too. And wherever you are listening from tonight, if somebody crosses a room for you, let them. It is the getting across that is difficult. The rest is only dancing.